We have breaking news. Ezekiel Elliott has been granted a brief administrative stay by the Second Circuit Court. That is a federal appeals court in New York. So what does that mean? Well, it means Zeke Elliott will play this Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, the top team in the AFC. Albert Breer, senior writer for the MMQB, joins us now. Albert, what's your reaction to this news?
Well, I mean, I think it's to some degree something we could have expected because this court's been rushed to make a decision here. And in this particular case, they want to take their time. And so they're going through that right now with the three-judge panel. The decision on the actual preliminary injunction is the one that you want to watch because that's the one that's going to determine whether or not Zeke and his people can kick the can down the road. You remember he was granted a TRO in Texas, then that was overturned by the circuit court. He was denied a TRO in New York, and so he appealed that to the circuit court. So that's the stage of this that we're at now. And basically, if he is granted the injunction, it would allow him to continue to play while his case is in the courts. And I think the chances are, based on the way the courts usually operate, that would mean that he would be on the field for the rest of the season. So don't take this as any sort of sign that he's going to be on the field for the rest of the 2017 season. For right now, it's just the judges buying time to make a decision on that preliminary injunction. Once they make a decision on the preliminary injunction, then we'll know whether or not he's going to play for the rest of the 2017 season.
My head is spinning trying to follow this suspension. Is there any way it could be spun as a negative for the Cowboys? Because if he does get the suspension this season, it could be during the crucial points of the year for Dallas. Meanwhile, if it had been served, it would be over with by now.
Sure. It all depends right now on how quickly the three-judge panel rules in New York. And so most of this is really up to the judges, and I wouldn't think that they're going to take a month to make a decision here, which would push it to where you'd be talking about missing potential playoff games, maybe the bulk of December. I think that the judges are going to come to a decision in the next week or two on whether or not to grant him the actual injunction. And so that would just mean a week or two difference. And look, they have the Chiefs this week. That's one of the toughest opponents left in their schedule. That's one of the reasons why the timing was bad for the Cowboys. So as it stands right now, this isn't a horrible thing for Dallas. If it were to drag on for 3 or 4 more weeks, if the judges were to drag their decision out for another 3 or 4 weeks, then we'd be talking about something else. But I don't anticipate that happening.
Albert, I haven't heard this answered. Could this impact him in the playoffs, or is this simply a regular season issue?
No, it could impact him in the playoffs. The league certainly could make the decision if, say, they make the judges rule on this and decide not to give him the injunction first week of December, then, certainly you look at that, that'd be 4 games plus probably playoff games. And so it's something the league hasn't really dealt with a lot, and generally these suspensions happen at the beginning of seasons. And so we haven't seen it in play a lot, but certainly it's something that is possible and that the league has power to do. And so if the judges, again, that 3-judge panel in New York, were to drag this decision out for another month, then it would be in play. I just don't think it's going to take them that long to make a decision on the actual injunction.
Okay, we are keeping our eye on that story.
But you never know. You never know.
There's always has to be some kind of caveat, asterisk, something when you're talking about this particular case. Meanwhile, we should move on, though, Albert, to Houston. And what a range of emotions for that city. The day after the Astros win the World Series, the Texans lose their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, to an ACL tear in practice. You combine that with Watt and Merciless being injured, and the Texans are on the verge of a lost season. Now, let's move this forward. There were rumblings last year that the Texans and Bill O'Brien may potentially have been talking about parting ways. So how should Bill O'Brien and his staff be evaluated this year considering all this turmoil?
Well, I don't know that it's really going to have much to do with their performance, Maggie. I think as much as anything else, this is going to be about the relationship between coaching and scouting and how Bob McNair looks at his football operation in regards to how the whole thing is aligned. And so coming out of this year, there are going to be some decisions to make. Generally, you don't send your coach into a contract year. 2018 is the contract year for Bill O'Brien. And when there was talk about him leaving there after the 2016 season, that wasn't based on performance either. I don't think anybody could look at the job that Bill O'Brien's done actually coaching the team. And you can make arguments about what they've done at the quarterback position up until now. But as far as just coaching the team itself, which is the primary part of Bill O'Brien's job, I don't think there's any argument that he deserves to hang on here no matter what happens. He deserves a mulligan based on all of the injuries and obviously everything the team's been through. I mean, they dealt with Hurricane Harvey at the beginning of the year. J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless down for the year. Now they lose Deshaun Watson for the year. There's no question that Bill O'Brien has earned the right to a mulligan with his performance on the field. But I don't think the decision on whether or not to extend him past 2018 is going to be made based on his performance on the field. I think it's going to be based on the overall health of the football operation. And where that is in December is anyone's guess. Having a young quarterback in there, I know helped matters. But obviously now he won't be there for the next couple of months. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. Generally, you don't send a coach into a contract year. You make a decision on him ahead of his contract year. And so decision time for the Texans on Bill O'Brien's future would seem to be coming after the 2017 season.
Yet another injury story in the NFL. Andrew Luck out for the season now. The news and timeline around his shoulder has been odd. Is there concern for him beyond this season?
Certainly there is. You know, I think that you look at the way the timeline's worked up until now. It's not so much the recovery time that he's taken. It's as much as anything else. It's the time. It's the setbacks. And I believe the Colts people that I've talked to when they've told me over the spring and the summer that they planned on him being ready for Week 1. That didn't happen. Then they had to make a decision before Week 1. Do we put him on the regular season PUP list? They decided not to, implicitly telling everybody we expect him back in the first month. Then that didn't happen. Then they get him out there and they start him throwing again. Then they shut him down. That's setback number 3. And now shutting him down for the year. That's setback number 4. He won't throw again until after the first of the year. And even if they do find a way to get those muscles aligned, and I'm not a doctor, but that's just the way Chris Ballard's explained it, is that it's about getting the muscles in the shoulder aligned and working properly together. You have to wonder, is this going to affect his arm strength? Is this going to affect who he is physically after the injury? And so there's a lot of layers to the story. And I think the main thing that you got to look at, not the amount of time it took him to get back from January to potentially coming back in September, then that being pushed back to October, then that being pushed back to January, because these sorts of surgeries always take time for players to come back from. The big thing you want to look at is the setbacks. The setbacks tell you this has not gone according to plan, and certainly it's something that the Colts organizationally have to be worried about going forward. Remember, one of the main reasons that Chris Ballard took that job, and he passed up GM opportunities in the past, one of the main reasons he took the job was the presence of Andrew Luck. They're not going to prioritize anything over Andrew Luck's health, which is why they're taking the time to shut him down now and trying to get him back to full health without regards to how the 2017 season plays out.
Okay. Halloween, Albert, we know it's over, but that was a zombie version of the Buffalo Bills on Thursday. They were flat out terrible in every way. They lost to the Jets, and they fall a full game behind the Patriots in the AFC East. Now, after the game, Richie Incognito blamed the schedule, saying Thursday night football games just aren't fair. Now, is he right, or are the Bills just not as good as we thought?
I actually talked to Richie about 20 minutes ago about this, and what he told me was that he knows he came off a little whiny. He understands the timing of it wasn't right because they just come out of a blowout loss, but he feels very strongly about the Thursday night thing. He hasn't practiced at all in 2 weeks, and really the way he described his personal situation was, my whole mindset was just get myself through these 11 days, the week leading up to the game against the Raiders, and then the 3 days leading up to the Jets game. He had a really rough go of it last night. I know on the plane he had some motion sickness because he'd taken painkillers before the game to get through it, and now obviously he's dealing with some. Now he's obviously got to deal with the loss, and so this is something that Richie Incognito has felt strongly about for a while. It didn't just come out of nowhere. He made that clear to me this morning. As for the Bills, I mean, look, Maggie, I know maybe your concern level is high here. I'm not that worried about it because Thursday night tends to produce these sorts of performances from time to time. We will see teams lay eggs because of the circumstances you play under and going on a Thursday night, particularly when you're the road team. And so I think now we've got a gut check for the Buffalo Bills. Next up, 9 days from now, they play the New Orleans Saints. So that should give us a better gauge of where they're at. But I think that there's a good chance that this is just an aberration, that a bunch of different circumstances conspired to sort of create this no-show performance from the Bills, and they'll be okay going forward.
Albert, I think at this point we've covered everything but fast food pizza chains. Jerry Jones is a major shareholder in Papa John's. There's some speculation he could be behind the CEO's comments regarding the NFL and player protests affecting sales. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I wouldn't put anything past Jerry, but I would tell you his level of concern here. I mean, this is, to me, the smoking gun in what he's really concerned about, okay? And I know a lot of people have tried to make this about Zeke Elliott or try to make this about the anthem protests. The reason Jerry Jones is concerned is because the business has been ascending forever, and now it's started to level off. And the level of concern he has and other owners have about where the business is going now is high. That doesn't mean the NFL's collapsing. What that does mean is that this track that they were on and that goal that they'd set to get to $25 billion in total revenue, well, that train isn't rolling up, isn't rolling downhill anymore. And so they're looking at absolutely everything. And this is one of those sorts of things that they're looking at very, very hard to try to figure out how they can get the business back in a position where it's ascending once again. And so you look at all the scandals the NFL has dealt with since 2011, Deflategate, Bountygate, Bullygate, the Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, Adrian Peterson situations, the ref lockout. In almost every one of those situations, we've seen owners who may have been upset but standing down because the business was booming. The reason you're seeing this sort of reaction now is because the business isn't booming the way that it was. And I think that this situation with Jerry Jones and Papa John is reflective of that.
Man, and we all would probably have to say we saw it coming. If anything's going to bring down the NFL, it's going to be the pizza guy.
That's right.
Oh, man. Albert Breer, mmqb.com. Albert, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Maggie.
The Minnesota Vikings are 6-2. They're in first place in the NFC North and coming off a win over the Browns in London. Their lead wide receiver, Stefon Diggs, joins us now on behalf of Old Spice Invisible Spray, and we'll get to that in just one moment. But first, football. Last season, Stefon, the Vikings got off to this great start, 5-0, and then things went a little bit sideways, finished the season 8-8. How different does this hot start feel compared to last season?
I would say firstly, we had 2 L's. We know what it feels like to lose, and it does happen. But last year we were in a different mind state. We had a lot of injuries. We had a lot of things happen that we were fully accountable for. We fought through. We tried to make it work, but things do happen. It's the same team we had last year for the most part. A couple new faces, but we know how to battle with adversity. And seeing a guy go down and never making an excuse, just keep going, keep fighting, and finding a way to win.
Can you describe the difference between the 3 quarterbacks that you've played with while being a Viking? So Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. Sort of go through those 3 and how are they different or how are they similar to each other?
Similarities, I would say they're all professionals at the end of the day. They all come in with a objective and to get the job done and they do the best way they can. But they all bring something different to the table. Sam back there, you want to sit back there, he's going to throw the ball. He loves throwing the ball. And Teddy, he's going to move around a little bit, so you're going to have to move with him. And then you got Case, who's kind of like similar to Teddy. He'll move around a little bit, and you want to be out there making plays for him, so you're going to find some open lanes. But they all have that same professionalism about them as far as, like, approaching the game and getting things done and, being a general out there. They have an objective when they go out there, and, you can see it. Going forward,
who are you expecting to be catching passes from?
Honestly, I don't think about it. I trust anybody that go back there. My job is to catch the ball. I'll let you know when I start quarterbacking a little bit, but I'm just trying to catch it.
Geez, unfortunately, I'm knocking on wood for you because the way injuries have been happening, you might need to go under center. You were a 5th-round draft pick. Adam Thielen was undrafted. So who gets to claim to be the greater success story? Like, who can claim to be the diamond in the rough here?
I would say Adam. Adam was undrafted. He came through the back door, as we call it. And he just grinded to get where he was at, you know, and I respect him. I have utmost respect for that man. And, you know, that's like my brother. As far as, like, we have similar stories, and he probably had it a little bit harder than I did. So, you know, I have nothing but respect for him, and I'm forever going to have his back.
That's the old Wu-Tang line. Uninvited, came through the back door. Of course, the Packers have really had a stranglehold over the NFC North for a while. 5 of the last 6 years, they've won the division. Now Aaron Rodgers goes down. I know you're focused on your own team, but with that small opening, does it feel like this could be the Vikings' year?
I mean, we feel like that every year. You want to win, and you want to be at the top of the division at the end of the year. I mean, we never say, like, oh, well, you know, Green Bay's usually has been good. They do this, X, Y, Z. I mean, we don't really care. We go out there playing the game like everybody else, and we prepare to win. So it's always been realistic for us to, you know, want to be on top, and whether Aaron Rodgers is on the team or not.
We talked to Todd Gurley recently. He doesn't think the international games are fair to players because of the travel. You just played in London. What do you think about him?
I mean, I had a great time. I was there a couple months before the season started. As far as like the people, I mean, I love the experience. I love the fans. I love the crowd. So it was a nice trip, especially when you go there and get a win. You're happy, but as far as like adjusting to sleep and stuff like that, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like we went there to get a job done, win a game. And no matter how much sleep you gotta go perform.
Okay, you're here on behalf of Old Spice, so tell us which teammate really needs some Old Spice. I mean, if there's someone who you can call out who could use a refresher and some invisible spray, who is it?
Adam Thielen. You set me up for this one. You know, we make fun of each other on a daily basis, and that's really like my brother, so I'm gonna automatically say his name. He needs this.
What about an opponent? I mean, is there a team that you'd like to hand some Old Spice spray to and just say, guys, you got to get it together?
I try not to get too close to guys, especially that close, to be smelling them, but I'll let you know when I have one.
The Old Spice Invisible Spray delivers the 48 hours of protection, doesn't get on your clothes. You can find more oldspice.com. Last one for you, Stefon. A lot of buzz in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Obviously, Andrew Wiggins, the Timberwolves. We saw you at the Wild game on the microphone. The WNBA team, the Lynx have been phenomenal. The Twins rebounded, made the playoffs. In general, what's the vibe around Minnesota?
Everybody's, you know, uphill slope. Everybody's excited for where things are going. And, you know, the Lynx have always had a good team, and the Wilds have always been pretty good. So as far as like where we're at with it, we're just trying to keep it going from both our side of the bargain.
I'm not going to let you say one game at a time in this answer, but the Super Bowl is going to be played in Minneapolis this year. No home team has ever played in their home stadium in a Super Bowl. Have you thought about that even once this season?
No, I haven't. I'm not going to say, you know, I won't give you the one game at a time answer, but I haven't thought about it just because, you know, I'm a firm believer of you. When you think far ahead, too far ahead, you know, you don't worry about the things that are in front of you. So, you know, I don't want to say one game at a time, but one task at a time. And, you know, at the end of the road, if the success story happens that way, you know, we're going to get back on this Skype and we'll have another conversation.
Stefon Diggs, really appreciate your time on behalf of Old Spice. Thanks so much for being with us, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Wade Phillips has spent his life in football as a head coach or coordinator for 9 different teams in the NFL. His latest stint is with the LA Rams. He won a Super Bowl with the Broncos. He has a new book out. It's called Son of Bum: Lessons My Dad Taught Me About Football and Life. And Wade Phillips good enough to join us now. And Coach, the Rams offense has gotten a lot of the attention during this 4-game winning streak. You're off to a great start. But what has been the biggest improvement from the defense that you've seen?
I think we've improved as we've gone along. The last 3 games, we've given up 11 points a game. So those numbers are really good. And, they gave up a lot of points last year. They were 23rd or 24th in points given up. So, the key stat in football besides turnovers is the points, especially points per game.
You've coached nearly 30 Hall of Famers, some of the best pass rushers ever. We're talking about Reggie White. We're talking about Bruce Smith, DeMarcus Ware, J.J. Watt, Von Miller. The list goes on and on. What is the ceiling for Aaron Donald? Is he part of that group?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everybody everybody that watches him the last few years, and then obviously this year too. I mean, he's a tremendous player. Wherever you put him, whatever defense he's in, he dominates. So he's obviously like JJ was when I had him. I think they're obviously future Hall of Famers.
Of course, you're a coordinator for a 31-year-old head coach. He's put his quarterback in positions to succeed. What is the one thing you've seen from Sean McVay that he's done for Jared Goff that has led to this early season success?
Well, he's a tremendous teacher. He's done a great job with Jared. I mean, yeah, I know you can improve from the first year to the second year, but his improvement has been tremendous. The whole offense, being last in the league the last 2 years with Jared or without him, and then to be where we are now, it's a tremendous accomplishment. I can't say enough about what Sean's done as a head coach.
You've coached so many teams. You've won titles. Is this team a real title contender?
Well, we'll see. I mean, obviously 5-2 and in the upper tier as far as wins are concerned, but it is a one game at a time league, and how have you done lately, and what kind of momentum you have, and what kind of consistency you have, and we're looking for that right now. There's good things ahead for this team, I think, no matter what, because we're a real young team. We are, I believe, the second youngest team in the league. So I think there's good things ahead of us. We'll see if we can grab them right now.
Of course, being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, it's just different. You're under a certain type of microscope. You talk about this in the book. What did you learn from those days that you've then used at other stops along your career?
I think you just do the best you can do wherever you are. That's what I've tried to do, and hold to your principles and how you feel like you should coach. And part of the book is I think there's a way to coach and there's a way not to coach, and that's why I wrote some of the book. I wrote of what coaching is, and it's more teaching than it is hollering and screaming at people. It's relationships with people, whether it's your coaches, your players, your administrators, whatever. It's the relationships that you have, that you bond with people, and the winning and losing certainly makes a difference in that. But I still have players from the Houston Oilers that we're in touch with. In fact, Robert Brazil, hopefully is getting in the Hall of Fame this year. Those things you can't count in wins and losses.
Coach, did you ever think about yourself and putting together a Hall of Fame resume?
No, I don't think they do it for assistant coaches. And but I've been lucky to be with a lot of great players, and you named a lot of those guys, and we've had a lot of winning situations. So that's been the enjoyment for me.
What about a head coaching job again? Is that something that you would still like to pursue?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Once you get my age, and I know age isn't supposed to be a factor, but I think, I was a head coach at 33, I think. So those guys have that energy and wherewithal, I think, to do it. I still have a lot of energy, but I don't think anybody's going to give me that opportunity. I've had my chance as a head coach. I wasn't a great head coach. I think I'm a pretty good coordinator.
Well, the record in the regular season speaks for itself. You and I have talked before, though. You said you got to win in the playoffs. You're judged a lot by the wins and losses in the playoffs. I mentioned all those fantastic pass rushers that you coached, these great defensive players. When you sat down to write the book, of course, you're going to talk about your father, Bum, and the influence he had on you. But who are you most excited to share stories about from your players?
Oh, I think all, even guys you played against, that you got to know. And one great opportunity for me was playing against Peyton Manning. When I was at Buffalo, we had some great games, and he was just starting as a quarterback. Shows you how far I go back. But when he had his first year and then went on to play him several years, and he became great. and then to play with him again, have a chance to coach with him was a pretty neat thing. So those kind of stories are a lot of fun for me.
Of course, you guys teaming up for Super Bowl 50, you winning a ring, Peyton Manning winning a ring in his final ride. Coach Wade Phillips, the book is called Son of Bum, Lessons My Dad Taught Me About Football and Life. It's a great read. I love how every chapter starts with a saying from your father. I think fans would really like that too. And Coach, good luck this weekend against the New York Giants.
All right, thanks.
It's time to get some fantasy advice from the fantasy executive, Corey Parson here. Corey, let's get your starts and sits for the weekend. Who are you starting in Week 9?
So let's start off with some of the starts for Week number 9. I want to start off at the wide receiver position with Ted Ginn Jr. Ginn Jr. has been absolutely getting it done so far this season. Listen, that Saints team is going more towards running the football nowadays, but still, Ted Ginn Jr. is still getting his work. Going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary, they average about 275 yards a game against them, not to mention the fact they've given up over about 10 touchdowns through the air so far this season. So I think you got to get Ted Ginn Jr. in your lineup this week. 6 teams on bye, it should be easy to do that, but he's kind of a fringe play, but I do like Ginn Jr. I think he gets in the end zone this week.
Okay, who else you got starting?
Matthew Stafford. It's kind of a disappointment season so far for Matthew Stafford for starters. I know his fantasy owners are not too pleased with him, but in 2 games versus the Packers last season, Stafford threw for over 340 yards a game with 5 touchdown passes. The Packers D is kind of in the middle of the pack, but that's a pun.
Yeah, no pun intended, or maybe absolutely intended.
There you go right there. But still, 23 passing plays over 20 yards this year. You can get down the field on him, so I get Matt Stafford in my starting lineup, even though he's been disappointing for fantasy owners so far. And last but not least is Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis, without Jordan Reed, Kirk Cousins right now, it's not the same offense as last year. Cousins is throwing the football to the running back and Chris Thompson and to the tight end. So Vernon Davis has value. He has value if Jordan Reed is actually playing, especially with 6 teams on bye. But get Vernon Davis in the lineup this week. The Seahawks give up 12 points per game to fantasy tight ends. I think Vernon Davis has a good chance to score this week out there in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, who are you sitting in Week 9?
Yeah, it's hard to sit people with 6 teams on bye. Let's start with Marcus Mariota. The Baltimore Ravens are a top 5 fantasy defense against the quarterback position. Now, it might be tough to sit him, but I really don't think Mariota is fully healthy. Guys like Tyrod Taylor, some of the players a little bit further down the board, I think are better options this week than Marcus Mariota in that tough matchup. C.J. Anderson, his play since the Dallas game, his play is starting to slowly go down. Snaps are going down. Also, we're starting to see Devontae Booker get in the mix a little bit more. The Eagles have one of the best run defense. Matter of fact, they have the best run defense in the NFL. So I think C.J. Anderson's a sit this week also. I think Booker going forward is a player to own. If he's on your waiver wire, you might want to go ahead and scoop him up, stash him. Dollar make you holler on Booker.
Nice.
And last but not least, Alshon Jeffrey up against the no-fly zone. Is it me or does Alshon Jeffrey look like a tight end now?
A little bit.
Yeah, he's like a tight end. He's like a 2 for 35, a 4 for 40 type player. He got that 50-50 ball one last week, but he's not really going to be doing that against the no-fly zone. So I like players like Aguilar and Zach Ertz better. I got to put Alshon Jeffrey on my bench. He's not getting the job done right now.
LeBron James's Cavaliers are off to the worst start since his rookie year. Of course, we know how his first tenure in Cleveland ended, and the speculation is rampant. His second one could end like his time in Miami did. His teammate there, a new member of the Cavs, even compared the current Cavaliers to LeBron's final season with the Heat when answering a question about how difficult it is to make 4 straight finals.
That last year in Miami when we went to the final, I don't know how we made it. As a team, we was kind of like this. It was worse because it wasn't new guys. It was guys that have been around each other 4 years in a row. So your jokes wasn't funny no more to other guys. When you walked in, it wasn't a big smile no more. Guys was just over you. It's like being in a bad marriage.
So, Maggie, can the Cavs work out their marital issues?
I mean, I believe they can, although I'm not sure how Miami was much worse than Cleveland. Cleveland is one of the bottom 3 teams in the Eastern Conference now if you look at the standings. But I think that the Cavaliers will be able to rectify this. Listen, at some point they're going to get Isaiah Thomas back. At some point, I believe they will use that first-round draft pick they got from the Brooklyn Nets to try to bring more pieces in. I don't think this team is done filling the needs that are so obvious and gaping on the defensive side of the ball. Now, the weird thing about the bad marriage, though, comment, right? Let's go back to that. If it was so bad in Miami that last year when Wade and LeBron and Bosh were together, how is it possible that Pat Riley came out later and said he was so blindsided by LeBron James leaving Miami to go back to Cleveland? I mean, I thought he was the godfather. Isn't he supposed to have his finger on the pulse of everything going on in the organization? So that's a little shocking. And then maybe I'm weirdly giving more credit to now the Golden State Warriors. I mean, low-key, that core has been together now for 6 seasons. And we only hear that they have the best chemistry. So the bad marriage thing was a definite red flag for me, although I believe the Cavaliers will get through it.
Well, here's the difference between the Cavs and the Warriors. The Warriors have overwhelming talent, and those guys are all in their primes. You know, the Cavaliers can work out some issues. They'll get better. There's no doubt. They're a bad basketball team right now. Isaiah Thomas could help their defense, not because he's a good defensive player, but if you're playing good offense, the other team is taking the ball out of the basket, and you can set your defense. But I don't think the Cavaliers have the personnel as currently constructed. Perhaps they use that Brooklyn pick, but if LeBron's leaving, do you really want to move it? If you're looking at the roster around James right now, it's almost as bad as any he's played with. And defense, some people say it comes down to just effort. That's not true. You know, defense is communication, defense is length, defense is athleticism and foot speed. There's a lot of things that go into being a good defense, and I do not believe they have the answer in-house to be a good defensive team because it's really LeBron and the wash stars at this point.
So if they're going to get better, though, on defense, all right, if they're going to bring in talent that's going to help them try to beat the Warriors this year, beat the Celtics and beat the Warriors.
Celtics look really good.
Celtics look really good. If they're going to do that, how can they if they do not dangle that first-round draft pick?
Oh, they can't. I mean, that has to be the piece
Right.
that's going to get it done. So the question is, can you get multiple players in their relative prime who are quick and athletic and can move laterally on the perimeter with that pick? But if you're Dan Gilbert, if you're the GM Altman, do you move the pick if you don't have LeBron's commitment? It's probably the most interesting subplot of this entire NBA season.
And I also don't expect that LeBron is going to tell them either way whether he's staying or going. I mean, Dwayne Wade was just talking about that last year in Miami. It was bad. He did not tip his hand in any way that at least Pat Riley or even Dwayne Wade seem to know about.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make that trade, you have to make the kind of trade that not only you think elevates you this season, but elevates the makeup of the team going forward. Because if you're just looking at the team right now and their age, why would LeBron stay if his chief goal is actually winning?
No, but anyway, if they make a trade at all, it's going to be looked at, oh, they're going all in for this season. But you're right, they're going to have some kind of plan moving forward, whether LeBron stays or whether he goes. Meanwhile, not all marital issues have to be so melodramatic. Yesterday, I had the chance to talk with Colin Hanks, the star of the CBS sitcom Life in Pieces. Now, Hanks is a massive baseball fan, so we asked him about the World Series and whether there actually is crying in baseball, despite the line from his famous father. One of the stars of Life in Pieces. It's on Thursdays on CBS, 9:30 p.m. Of course, Colin Hanks good enough to join us, and congratulations on season 3. We want to talk to you all about it, but first, we are Sports Illustrated. We know you are a huge baseball fan, Colin, but you're a Giants fan. So how does it feel to watch the Dodgers, your rival, lose Game 7 of the World Series?
Pretty good. Pretty good. No, I feel bad for all my friends that are Dodgers fans, but I would be lying if I didn't say, like, it does feel good to see a team in orange beat the Dodgers. So I'll take that every time.
As a Giants fan, what do you think when people compare Clayton Kershaw to Madison Bumgarner and say Kershaw's better?
I say 3 rings make all the difference in the world. No, look, I mean, I think they're just very differently structured teams. But even if you look at the Dodgers this year, I think they were starting to sort of get it that it's not necessarily about the size of the payroll. It's all of the little things that you have to do in order to get far. It's pitching, but it's also that small ball. And the Giants definitely have a lot of small ball in their 3 championship years. You wouldn't necessarily call them all big sluggers. But solid pitching, a good closer, and some small ball, that can get you pretty far. And it obviously worked very well for Houston. Geez, but that's despite the fact that there were more home runs than I've ever seen In a World Series.
Are you going to be gloating about this? I mean, you said you feel bad for your friends who are Dodger fans, but your team has been the more successful team recently, so is this something you'll remind them of?
All the time. Whenever anyone starts talking to me, I just say, don't worry, the Giants, we're okay. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine with our 3. Yeah, I'll gloat a little bit, but I won't make them cry too hard.
Well, speaking of that, no baseball movies or TV shows on your resume. Obviously, though, your father has one of the most famous lines in movie history when it comes to baseball, that there's no crying in baseball. Have you ever shed a tear, though, over sports?
Absolutely. When the Los Angeles Kings won their first Stanley Cup, I was bawling like a little baby, to the point where my wife then promptly took photos of me crying, and then I told her to stop. Sports are it's one of the things I love about sports. It is the best reality show on earth. It's the original reality show. It's the original storytelling. It's the original Greek tragedies. It is everything you would want in good storytelling, if you're paying close attention. And when you're invested in that story for years or decades of your life, and your team finally wins, that's a very, very special thing. But it doesn't even need to be your team winning to, make me emotional. Even if it's kids playing their last collegiate football game, that I get emotional about that. There's so many different facets to sports that I find to be incredibly engaging and dynamic, and that's never lost on me.
Life in Pieces, of course, you play Greg, your wife Jen, struggling to find that work-life balance with a young toddler. That's sort of the storyline in season 3. Have you figured out the secret, Colin? What is it, and can you share it with the rest of us?
Oh, if I knew, I would be screaming it from the mountaintops. No. It's the thing that I've always really enjoyed about the show is this idea of we would meet this couple as they are bringing their child home for their first child home, and just sort of be on that journey with them. And so here we are, starting our 3rd season, and that kid is now agile, mobile, and hostile. It has wants, needs, and desires that must be met at that moment. And there's a lot of comedy there. There's a lot of stuff that we can play with, and we have been. So I'm really excited about the season starting up, and really excited for people to see the hijinks that ensue.
And hilarity ensues as well, I'm sure. Thursdays, 9:30 p.m. on CBS, Life in Pieces. Sports fan Colin Hanks, thank you for weighing in on the World Series and so much more. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.
It's time for SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. First, we head to Stillwater, Oklahoma for the 112th meeting of the Sooners and the Cowboys. With a 4-way tie at the top of the Big 12 standings, the stakes are high going into this matchup. Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy loves the intensity of this rivalry game and knows in the state of Oklahoma, this is the biggest show in town.
I think there's a lot of great rivalries across the country, but the one thing that's different in this state is we don't have pro football. The addition of the Thunder has been fantastic for this state, but this week everybody goes to work and you either wear orange or red.
The Sooners own a lopsided 85-19-7 record in this series, but the Cowboys are a slight favorite on Saturday. Oklahoma State's last win came in an overtime thriller back in 2014. Next, we head to East Lansing to see the Nittany Lions take on the Spartans. Penn State is coming off a heartbreaking loss to the Buckeyes, dropping them out of playoff contention for the moment. Penn State quarterback Trace McSorley acknowledges there is a small margin for error whenever you play your Big Ten rivals.
For me, it was that margin of error is so small in games of that magnitude and versus those caliber teams that every play that's out there, you have to take advantage of it. There were a couple plays where we were able to miss a guy downfield or easy pass that you never know what play is going to be the difference. So you just got to treat every play like it's gold, and you got to make every single play you can.
The Spartans will try to shut down Saquon Barkley again. Last year, they held the Heisman candidate to 14 yards on just 12 carries. Lastly, we head to Carolina for an NFC South matchup between the Falcons and the Panthers. Both teams come in with 3 losses, but the Panthers will be without their big weapon, Kelvin Benjamin, who was traded to Buffalo at the NFL's trade deadline. Here is Panthers quarterback Cam Newton on the loss of his weapon.
Benji is gone, it's done, it's over with. You know, it's time for us to move forward, however, hard it may be, but, we got a football game still to play.
The Panthers look to continue their defensive success. In 4 out of their 8 games this season, they have not allowed their opponent to score a touchdown. And that's what's in store for this weekend.